Hey folks, we're in Luke chapter 9 today of the Bible. Wait, what? And I'm sitting down in the mud house this week with Steve Danyi, and we are going to dig into these long chapters and pull out a few nuggets that will hopefully encourage, challenge, inspire us in our Christian journey and our kingdom life walk with the Lord. And so we touched on some of this stuff. We blended it in last week, but we'll revisit some thoughts around what's happening. Before we hand it over to you, Steve, just by way of review of what we talked about in yesterday's episode, these middle chapters of Luke have been wired together in such a way by Luke to try to tell us, to show us two things: what Jesus says and how Jesus does it. So teach us about the kingdom and then show us about the kingdom so that we can live the kingdom life. Sometimes as Christians, we're coming up to Christmas and we make a great, a great experience and celebration of Christmas, and we obviously celebrate Easter, but they're the bookends of Jesus' life. And there's a lot in between in those 3 years of ministry where Jesus, if he was all about just being born and dying and going to heaven, we wouldn't have all this stuff about Jesus teaching and showing how to do the kingdom life. So I have to think that there's a massive amount in the middle that's really important to us to help us live well.
We can read the Bible, but we need to experience it. I mean, this chapter 9 about sending out the 12.
Yeah.
Well, okay, they get a bit of teachings from Jesus. They see his miracles, but off you go.
And they're still very raw at this point. They've got it all figured out. These guys haven't been to seminary and got their PhDs in theology, have they?
No. Just get your special Jesus designed leather sandals. They're extra thick sole. The Galilean sandals. Because Jesus is going to send you out. And what does he say? Just it seems like he says, as far as possessions, just carry little. But it seems to me that it's the measure of faith.
Yes.
You need to if I said to you before that say if it's us two going out to do ministry for the first time, and I said, look, I know Jesus said just to carry what was it, a couple of shirts and
just
a small
don't take too much with you, basically.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
Expect that everyone will provide for you.
That's right. But I sneak in a heavy bag, because I just want to.
Because I don't quite trust Jesus enough.
Well, I don't. Yeah,
hedge my bets, maybe.
Yeah, I don't trust myself. I'm still learning.
That's good. It might have been trusting Jesus. What if I mess this up? Yeah,
survival thing.
Yeah.
I know, Rohan, that you might be asking more extra bread for my, extra packy. But yeah, so what do we learn? That it's the measure of faith. But you got to trust in Jesus.
Trust in the word of Jesus, because Jesus. He told them not to take a lot, but he gave them a lot. So It starts with Jesus gave them authority,
there you go,
power and authority to cast out all demons and heal all diseases. Then he sent them out and said, don't take stuff with you. Why do you not have to take stuff? Because Jesus has already given them everything they need. In order to be able to do what he called them to do, they had what they needed to have.
That's a leap of faith, isn't it?
It is a leap of faith, yeah. And I think about that in my own journey, in my own walk with the Lord. Even right now in the season of life I find myself in, Jesus is asking me, Rohan, do you trust me with what I've given you? Or are you prepared to not take with you extra stuff?
Yeah.
But just trust that what I've given you will be enough for you. I'm finding that really, really pertinent in my life just in the season I'm in.
The Christian existentialist Soren Kierkegaard, I think he wrote a book called Leap of Faith.
Right, yeah, I know.
It's not till you get the leap of faith, and that's when the suffering kicks in, because that's when you're really stepping in.
It's where you really lay it on the line, isn't it?
Lay it on the line,
Not only is it not where the suffering kicks in, I think it's also where the power of God kicks in as well, because we're totally reliant on God when we don't have that extra backpack with us with the extra clothes and so on.
So we need to be out of our comfort zone. We need to be suffering a bit. Is that a sign that
that's the kingdom life?
That's kingdom life. You're on the right path.
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes Pentecostal, and maybe not so much Pentecostal, but some aspects of the hyper faith movement have misinterpreted that as if to say, look, if you're in God's will, you'll never lack, you'll never have anything. Whereas I would argue theologically that unless you're in a place where you are totally 100% reliant on God to come through for you, you're not fully walking in faith. And it's at that point where the miracles happen.
And the surprises.
Yeah, good surprise.
The good surprises, some of the disappointments as well.
That's right. But God will still work in the disappointments too.
Yes.
He'll show himself in the dark times or the times where it seems like there isn't enough.
It's never wasted, is it?
No.
And I think we earlier said, look what happened to Jesus when he got the knockback in his hometown. Is that right?
Yep.
And so, if he gets knocked back, then we shouldn't feel too bad if we get the knockback
right.
as well.
And Jesus got knocked back in his hometown in chapter 4. He got knocked back by the Samaritans, which I think is in this chapter.
Yes.
He went to a Samaritan village and they didn't receive him. Later on, he did go to another Samaritan village. We read about that in John chapter 4, and he was received there by that village. But Jesus, I think you were saying off air just before we press record on this episode that Jesus was he didn't always get received everywhere, and yet he just kept putting one foot in front of another. And so that's an encouragement to us that we might not always be understood.
Yeah.
But just keep going. Well, Lord, I'm doing my best. I'm trusting you. I'll just keep moving forward.
I know Vicky and I last year went on that cycling trip, and I can easily think, oh, well, this is just a holiday, and I have this guilt trip, that I'm spending, we're spending a few months holidaying, cycling, and not doing God's calling, you know what I mean? So I thought, oh, well, it's an adventure. And every morning we did pray, we pray, and it's just whatever circumstances that comes out during the day that we're here to love on people. You know what I mean?
And you did.
And we did. And some of the surprises, it's just been absolute people opening up.
Oh, Vicky was telling me recently, she said, I couldn't go anywhere. Steve would start talking to someone and I'd be wanting to go to the next town, but meanwhile he's playing someone's guitar and talking to them.
That's right.
Oh, that's amazing, Steve.
But I'll never forget the day, in Italy, there was a guy at his little delicatessen store and he looked troubled. He had a little Jesus chain, the good Catholic Jesus chain. Yep. I says, I notice you got a Jesus. Do you pray, or much as to say, is it just an ornament, or do you live it? Yep. And he was almost tearful that he might lose his business and all this sort of stuff because people around the place were complaining about his business and all this sort of stuff. And I said, I'd like to pray for you. And she said, that'd be very much appreciated. So here, Vicky and I, he had to wait till all the locals got out of the shop because he didn't want to share that with the locals. It's around a small village. Yeah. So, but he waited till two strangers walked in, much as like these apostles into
they were doing. Walking into divine appointments.
That's it. That's it.
Gold.
Yeah, it is.
And it started with you basically doing what Jesus told them to do, which was just go out there, fill with me, open for business, and see what I'll do with your life.
When you're open for business, you're opening up your heart, aren't you? And you're being receptive with the Holy Spirit. Yeah. If we just fully went in there and just get the cheese and the crackers and the salami or whatever it is because we want to have a nice afternoon by the beach, we would have missed that whole thing. But no, we wanted to be open and receptive. Every morning we started off like that.
Yeah, I love that. That is like these disciples going town to town saying, Lord, I want to be your hands and feet. I'm given authority. I represent you in this place.
Yeah.
I love that.
If I can give you one more, quick one.
Yeah.
We met this couple and, they got happy snaps on the Facebook, haven't they? How many times do you see that? Happy snaps, isn't it?
And then looked all perfect on the Facebook.
Yes. Put the good words down. We're really enjoying our trip. And, of course, we're supposed to meet up with him down this beach the following day, and the guy didn't turn up. It was only his partner. Mm-hmm. And we got talking, and again, we were just talking about life. And she just turned around and said to us, are you Christians? And we go, yeah. And then she just opened up. She really did. And we met him a couple of weeks later anyway, and they were fighting. He was just nasty, And then on the way back, before we went off back home to our own accommodation, I says, really like to pray. Is that all right? And the guy was all for it. So all the four of us huddled together in a circle in an alleyway praying,
Amazing.
Well, I
real life Luke chapter 9. That's what that is.
Yeah, I think so.
Well done. Yeah,
thank you.
And it's a great privilege to be invited or to be open to be invited into people's lives. That's what these disciples are saying. Go there, and some will receive you and some won't. Yeah. And, Jesus says if they don't refuse, shake off the dust of your feet. And that has been misinterpreted as if Jesus was saying, pronounce judgment, call down fire on them and all that kind of stuff, pronounce the judgment because you haven't been received. That's not what he's saying here.
Right.
Jesus isn't advocating for, okay, you spoke to your family member and they didn't want to receive what you had to say, so therefore the judgment of God is on you.
Right.
That's never the heart of Jesus.
Right.
This is just more about saying, when you're shaking the dust off your feet, this is more about saying, well, I've done everything I can do at the moment. I'm going to go and find somewhere else to sow my seed. All the while aware that at any given time, someone might come running out of that town and say, hey, come back, I need to talk to you, because that's the heart. That's where people are at. So this isn't a self-righteous shaking of the dust. This is well, I'm gonna go and sow the seed Jesus has given me where it's most, to go back to our previous chapter's conversation, where it's going to produce in good soil.
That's my favourite saying, that one. You just shake the dust off and move on.
Yeah, that's right. And you can do it without being bitter.
That's what I was about to say. You don't get emotionally negative emotion set in your thought patterns.
Yep.
It's like, okay, that was just a moment, and just keep going.
Yep. And with family members, I say this all the time, or friends that maybe aren't ready to receive when we extend an olive branch of friendship or acceptance towards them. Not everyone's ready. Some people are hurt. Sometimes I've hurt people and they're not ready. But I can do what I can do to live at peace with all people. But as long as I go, hey, at any point, if you want to open up and share, may not agree with everything you've said, I may not agree with your perspective, but I'm open to have that conversation and bring a little bit of God's kingdom into that situation. I think it's a healthy way to live our lives. And that's what Jesus will be advocating for here, giving them authority to go and change the world, go and change their world, go and meet people, heal the sick, deliver demons, set people free, basically.
Yeah.
Bring his freedom to people. And we can all do that. You did that across the Mediterranean on your bikes. And we can do that in our workplaces. Do that anywhere.
Anytime.
Yep.
This Jesus transfigured on the mount. That's interesting. I mean, here he is during his ministry, miracles and teachings and things like that. And, they can obviously, they're listening and they're seeing the miracles. Then he goes up on the mount with how many apostles?
I think he takes
Peter
and John onto the Transfiguration mountain, yes.
But I want to know
Peter, James and John. Is it Peter, James and John?
And it says here, and he prayed. As he prayed, the appearance of his face was altered and his robe became white and glistening. When I read that, I'm thinking, I'm trying to fathom it, like how did he look when he came down from that mountain? Was he another step? Did he look different? What was it about him?
Scholars have wrestled with that one for ages. I think when he came down off the mountain, I would say he looked exactly the same as what he went up the mountain. What they saw on the mountain was an opening of his natural, how do I put it? I'm thinking of Philippians chapter 2, where it says that Jesus did not hold on to his equality with God, but made himself nothing and became in the form of a servant. So Jesus kind of shrouded his divinity and his glory inside this human fleshly body that Jesus had.
Right.
And it was in there, but Jesus had willingly laid it down, and he wasn't going to operate with all that glory. On that mountain, in that moment, that veil is brought back and they see this glory and they go, oh, this is who Jesus is. They reveal it to him, that Jesus reveals himself to these three apostles.
Right.
Then he closes back over again.
A little sneak preview.
It was a sneak preview. And Peter, who was there, will say in his letters much later on, in 1 Peter or 2 Peter, he will say something like, we beheld him on the sacred mountain. Many, many years later, Peter is an old man now, is reflecting back on that moment when they saw his glory on that mountain. And that was obviously something that sustained him, even through the death, and even beyond seeing the resurrected Christ. There was something about that moment on the mountain which captured Peter's hearts decades later, as much as seeing Jesus ascend into heaven. There was something about that moment, seeing him.
This transfigured, transformed, and us becoming more Christ-like, when we become resurrected, and all that all ties in all together.
It all ties into this,
and we become glorified.
Exactly, and Paul says that in 1
that.
Corinthians 15, we become glorified. So what we saw of Jesus in his glory, even though we don't have, and what even as resurrected humans won't have glory of ourselves, it'll still be a reflected glory from the Lord. So it's a little different to Jesus, who is glory incarnate. But there is something about that glorious radiance that Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15 that we will have too.
Okay, where's my head going with all this? The Transfiguration, like you said, he had this sneak an opening of his fullness or something, and then he brings it back in to be Jesus on earth.
On earth again.
Yet we're not incarnate gods, are we? No. So ours is this process where we become transformed, and we become the light and the salt, and I don't know. Do you know where I'm going with all this?
Is it that we are gradually becoming more like Jesus?
Yes, more like,
So a transfiguration like this was a way for Peter, James, and John, and then us as readers 2,000 years later, to see the potential that we have as we become like Christ.
Yeah.
So it's like an opening veil that says, hey, this is what the end picture can look like.
Yeah.
You're not there yet. Because you're still working out your salvation with fear and trembling. You are becoming like Christ. You are living, I keep saying it, this kingdom life. You are called to live this life that brings God's kingdom to earth. And little by little, even though we might not see the fullness of this radiance, the more we live it out, others-focused Christianity, kingdom, putting others before ourselves, seeking, laying down our lives for him, the more we do that, the more of God's glory gets on us. And the more we live that way, even though we might not literally shine,
that's what
our eyes shine. There's something attractive about
his
that.
Face change. You think like our face, a whole substance and element of ourselves. I don't want to be new agey, but there's an aura about you.
There's something about it.
There's something about you,
about a person who is following Jesus.
A presence.
Yes,
that's so powerful. And what's that? The Holy Spirit.
That's the Spirit working in us. Yeah, and there'll be days when we'll do that better than others. But over a course of our lives, the more we become like Jesus, the more attractive we are, because you can't help but become. I'm not talking about physically attractive. I'm talking about, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, we should be becoming something that people want to be around because we bring kingdom hope and life. And I think if that's where you're going, I would say yes. And whether you can pin it down to a quote unquote aura or some kind of supernatural power, and some people, carry a power around with them. Peter could walk past people and his shadow would heal people. There was obviously something substantial about that. But as a general rule for all of us, as we live this kingdom life, as we put into practice these parables and these teachings of Jesus and do this stuff, others around us should see something different about us.
There's the other word, manifestation.
Yeah.
It's a very new agey thing, and I think it's creeping into churches. I think some of these new agey,
if you say manifestation is a kingdom word.
Yes, okay.
I would say it was always there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you might be getting that. It's because like if I think being rich. If I think enough, then I'm going to become rich.
I see.
So you're forcing that. But Jesus...
That's not...
No, Jesus has got something for you,
Yeah. Jesus isn't worried about thinking about being rich. Jesus is thinking about being fruitful.
That's right.
It's an upside-down kingdom. Mm-hmm. If we would think about the things that matter to Jesus, or Philippians 4, Paul says, whatever is excellent and noble and excellent, praiseworthy and true, think about those things and you'll have a peace in your life. So... upside down kingdom, definitely I think we become more like Jesus as we dwell on and live out the things that Jesus wants us to do, which is ultimately putting others before ourselves, taking up our cross and following him.
Thank you so much for that. So what else we got here on 9? Okay. We've got Jesus again predicts his death. Let these words sink down into your ears, for the Son of Man is about to be betrayed into the hands of men. I think also.
And they still didn't get it down in their ears. They hadn't figured it out until afterwards.
I might have missed. Where was the bit that about when Jesus' family were outside the crowd and they're trying to meet him?
That was in chapter 8, I think. But
sorry about that.
I think it might have been where he says, "Here are my mother and father and brothers. Anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." That one.
Yeah. But I think it's saying, don't worry about them. They're already doing their
that's right. He's not down on his family.
Yeah.
He's just saying, if you want to be in my family, be about my business.
Yes.
The one who is part of my family is not just the one who says they're part of my family, quote unquote. It's the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. So there's a sense in which you've got to be living the kingdom life to be part of the kingdom family.
Yeah.
And if we can't honestly assess ourselves, and we have a relationship with Jesus, we go, okay, I'm a Christian. I go to church. Maybe I go to church, every couple of weeks on a Sunday when it suits me, when I'm not too busy. Maybe praying occasionally, but apart from that, I'm pretty much living my own life. I would think that we're on shaky ground, because the kingdom life is the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. So we need to be living out all of these values: selflessness, putting others first, honoring others, generosity, kindness. Name your fruit of the spirit of choice. We need to be living those things out.
Yeah, I think it's something to the effect that I don't need to meet up with them. That's all right. They're okay.
They're okay.
They're already doing it.
Yes, that's right. They're okay. Don't worry about them. They're not your responsibility. The people in this room, you're the responsibility. It's your responsibility to look after yourself.
Yeah.
I think there is an element of that in there. Yep.
Okay, so I think that's about
it.
It says the cost of discipleship, but I think we already kind of
and we can't underestimate that. Just to wrap up this episode,
yes,
we cannot underestimate Jesus' call. We've said it multiple times that there is a cost associated with following him. The amazing thing about it is it's that we find our true life when we give up our life. When we give up our self-desires and put Jesus' desires first in an upside-down kingdom way, that's where true happiness comes from. Not from trying to pursue what I think will make me happy, but actually giving up the things that I think will make me happy and trust that the things that Jesus says will make me happy will make me happy.
It's like that philosophy of happiness with these other guys
you were
the
chatting
other
with
day.
And
we all agree that it's within, not the outside things of pleasures and things like that.
They're not going to lead to ultimate happiness, are they?
No. But if I play the devil's advocate and I said to, convince me to be a Christian, it seems to me that there's a lot of suffering that needs to, that's going on.
Yep.
And have to endure. That's what it seems like.
Yes, it does.
I know it's partly because I'm pretty ignorant to the fact of the understanding, but a lot of these non-Christians will be thinking, there's a lot of suffering going on. What am I going to get out of this?
What's in it for me, kind of thing.
What's in it for me? Yeah.
And there's been two traditional answers to that, and I think they've both got truth in them. One is there's an eternal aspect. Mm-hmm. For the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. So there is an afterlife. Mm-hmm. There is some kind of promise of the life to come, which will be contingent upon how we live this life. If we live a selfish life now, there'll be a degree to which we'll miss out on the blessings in the life to come. Yeah, if we live a selfless life now, we'll live in view of something. So it's like deferred gratification.
Okay.
So there is a sense in which I'm giving up some of my own rights right now, but I'm doing it with an expectation that in the life to come, it's going to be so worth it. Mm. We all understand deferred gratification. We all understand the importance of not spending everything on credit, but going, okay, I'm going to wait until I can afford this thing or whatever. Mm. There is a deferred gratification component to it.
But I want something now.
I want something now, and this is the problem. And the problem is, I actually think that even though that's part of it, and we've probably taught this whole deferred gratification thing, we've got to be careful we don't get selfish in that, as though, I'm just denying myself now so that I can be selfish later. That's still not kingdom thinking.
Yeah.
So there has to be a sense, this upside down kingdom is, I'm actually going to deny myself now because I love you enough, Steve, to give up what I want and give it to you. And I'm actually going to trust that I'm going to find a blessing in this life now that is going to make that worth it. God, it might not be, I might give you $100. It might not be I get $100 back or I get $1,000 back. It might be that, but that's not the desire or the reason. There's a trust that in a weird kind of way, my true fulfillment, my true sense of purpose is found. My true happiness, to use the word you were using, is found when I actually prefer my brother or my sister over myself.
Wow.
That's why it's called an upside down kingdom, because
bring it on.
Does not make any sense.
Bring it on, because there's so much suffering in the world today because they're not living that upside down,
No. And I think that's the call of the way of Christ.
Thank you.
Not to look out for ourselves.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. That's good. All right. We will talk to you on chapter 10 tomorrow, folks. Have a good day. Talk to you then. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bible. Wait, what? Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And you can also find us on all the socials. Just search The Bible. Wait, what? And to find out more about our church, just search C3 Camden, C3 Picton, or C3 Thirroul on the web or on the socials. Thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to talking to you on the next episode of The Bible. Wait, what?